Hello, everyone. Hi to those who've joined us already. We're going to get started in just a moment's time. Just waiting for a few more people to join the Zoom. But in the meantime, if you could just check that you can hear me and see me all right, that would be great. Thanks, Tom. Okay. I am recording today as well, so you'll all get a copy of the recording once we have processed that as well. Brilliant. Thanks, Mim. So I'm expecting about 3 more people. So I'll just give those people a couple more minutes to join. So we are going to delve into the world of LinkedIn advertising. I've got some great examples to show you. And yeah, we've got lots to explore. So we'll get started in just a couple of moments' time. I'm just allowing a few more people to join the room. Hello and welcome to those that have just joined us. Hopefully you can all see me and hear me all right. So I think what I'm going to do is get started because there's a lot to get through. And then if anyone does join, or if you know of anyone who's due to join, then you can just tell them to join the wait room and I'll let them in as I'm talking. Okay, so welcome to today's session, LinkedIn Advertising in 2025. Great to have you all here. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. I've noticed that you all have your cameras off. That's absolutely fine. It's completely up to you how you would like to do so. But just to say, you're very welcome to turn them on if you want to, or if you'd like to ask me a question as we're going through, then I would welcome you also to switch your camera on for that, just so we can get into a bit of a deeper conversation there. I am recording today's session as well. So, as I've just mentioned to a few of you, I will be distributing the recording once the session is complete. So you can refer back to anything, or if you would like to, just do the course again as a refresher, it might be that you aren't quite ready to launch your LinkedIn ads yet. So you might want to rewatch it ahead of launching any campaigns. What else do I need to let you know in terms of housekeeping? I think that's pretty much it. As we're a relatively small group, I like to keep these sessions quite small so that you can ask away. Ask me any questions that you come across. If you're stuck or you want me to show you something, then please do let me know. You can chat me at any time as well on the Zoom call. Or as I said, you can just come off mute and ask me something if you would like to as well. So let's get started then, shall we? Well, today is all about LinkedIn advertising. As you know, my name is Alison. I've met most of you, but some of you I haven't met before. So here's a little introduction to myself. I am the founder of Avocado Social, which is our social media consultancy, which is 10 years old. And as you can see, we've worked with a wide range of brands across the last 10 years and done lots of LinkedIn advertising too, you'll be pleased to know. LinkedIn advertising is something that I would say traditionally a lot of people think it's really expensive, it's quite unobtainable, it's maybe a bit complicated. And actually, it's not. So it's definitely getting cheaper. We've seen the cost per click come down significantly over the last few years as more advertisers are willing to spend their advertising budgets there. The targeting capabilities are getting much better as well. So I will be sharing some stats with you around the kind of average costs that we tend to see when we're advertising on LinkedIn. So let's have a look at our agenda for today then. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview in terms of some of the stats we're seeing on LinkedIn at the moment, how LinkedIn is working for businesses, and then we'll get our advertising brains on and start thinking about what makes a great LinkedIn ad strategy. I'll talk to you briefly about setting up conversion tracking as well, if that's something you would like to do, and I do recommend that you do set that up. And then what we're going to do is jump into LinkedIn itself, and I'm going to walk you through setting up a dummy campaign, showing you where to click, what to avoid, sharing a few things that have worked well for our clients at Avocado Social in the past as well. We'll then talk about designing ads that convert. So what is working really well? And some of you may have seen we posted a few ideas yesterday on LinkedIn and Instagram around some ads that have been catching our attention recently. And then we'll finalize the session today talking about how to measure and optimize your campaigns too. So just give me a really brief straw poll, let's say. How many of you have advertised on LinkedIn before? And if you have, you can just give me a thumbs up, and I should be able to see that on my screen. So if you're not quite sure how to do that, just find the React button, which is on the main menu in Zoom, or you can just let me know in chat if that's easier. So the question is, have you advertised on LinkedIn before? Have you ever set up campaigns before? Okay, so I've got a real mix here. We've got a no from Dom, a yes from, oh, I can't see who that's from. Arena, no to Mim. I don't know whether you guys have. George says not yet. Okay, great. Okie dokes. So this is brilliant because it means I can really show you the foundations and all of the best practices that I've learned over the years from what works best. Okay, let's start with a little bit of an overview in terms of LinkedIn. What is happening at the moment on the platform? So one of the key things to note is that we're seeing huge growth in LinkedIn. There are 42 million UK users on LinkedIn, and that's 63% of the UK population. So it is a really healthy size of a social media platform. It has really crafted itself as the professional social media platform as well. It tends to be the one that all kinds of decision makers definitely have a profile on. In the last year alone, there has been an 122% increase in clicks on LinkedIn. So that's clicks on posts, clicks on links, clicks on videos. So engagement on the platform is up. And also video on the platform is up as well. So video uploads are up 34% compared with 2023. And that really shows that there's a huge commitment towards this kind of format on the platform. I'm sure if you're a LinkedIn user, you'll have noticed just how much video content there is now in the feed. And also the fact that we're now being served a lot of video content as suggested content, particularly vertical video content that takes up the whole mobile screen. Something else interesting to note is that 67 million companies are on LinkedIn now. So that's a stat from January this year. So there's a lot of competition. You know, it can be quite hard to make sure that your company page is getting traction in the feeds, and that's where advertising can come in. Another report that caught our attention at Avocado Social recently was this Metricool report that came out at the beginning of this year. This was looking at engagement in 2024 compared with 2023. So everything on LinkedIn tends to be up, apart from post frequency. So that's quite interesting. But that's where the stat around clicks, engagement, interactions on the rise. Something else which is really useful to bear in mind is that in the B2B world, and I know many of you are dealing with B2B companies, or maybe your clients are B2B, or perhaps you indeed work for a B2B business, that 84% are using social media at some point during their decision-making processes. And that's a stat that's come from LinkedIn. That goes to show that actually having some adverts live on the platform to really drive people further down your funnel towards conversion is really fruitful. And that's where a lot of businesses see LinkedIn working very well. On average, B2B buyers engage with 3 to 7 pieces of content before they even talk to a sales rep. So they do need to see things quite frequently. If you're familiar with meta ads and you do meta advertising, you'll know that often people don't really need to see things more than about 4 times is the frequency which Meta recommends is a top frequency of people seeing your ads. Whereas it's much higher in the B2B world. People need a little bit more time to make that decision, to be pushed into that funnel, and also to maybe give up their email address or organize a sales call, for example. So 3 to 7 times, so much higher frequency. And frequency, for those of you that don't know that figure, it's how many times your ad has been shown on average to your target audience. And you can get that metric in the reports, which is something I'd really strongly recommend doing because it's really useful to see how many times someone has seen an ad. So LinkedIn ads show up mainly in the feed. When you're purchasing your ads, you're basically choosing whether they go in the feed, or you also have an option of putting them in the feed and also across a family of apps. But this is called the LinkedIn Network, Audience Network, which is advertising space in third-party apps, so ones that aren't owned by LinkedIn, but they've bought the space to advertise there. And this is very similar to the Meta Audience Network, if you've ever used that, where you can purchase advertising space in apps which you don't own, but Meta owns a little bit of ad display space. So you've basically got the option of feed or feed plus audience network. And I will show you that later on and talk to you a little bit about the benefits and negatives of using that. So typically on LinkedIn, your ads will be placed normally in position number 2 in the feed. So if you open up LinkedIn on your phone or on a desktop, you'll notice that it's usually that second position in the feed that is a promoted ad. We can see that it's an ad because it has the word promoted underneath the advertiser. So it's quite subtle, and it works both on desktop and mobile. Interestingly, LinkedIn is slightly more mobile user. 64% of LinkedIn users are mobile, 34% on desktop, 2% on tablet. So I would always have assumed that LinkedIn would be more dominant on desktop just because you think people at work, people are browsing, during their working hours, but actually it is slightly more mobile now. And I do hear a lot of people saying, it's that kind of first thing they check on the way to work in the morning, on that commute. It's where they get their news. Posting around like 8:30 in the morning tends to be quite fruitful for a lot of people as well. So do definitely consider that when it comes to your ads, how your ads are looking on the mobile app and the mobile experience. So why should you be considering advertising? Well, of course, we do tend to see it getting harder and harder in social media to get that reach. Company pages in particular on LinkedIn do tend to struggle to get the big visibility because personal profiles on LinkedIn are doing so well at the moment. So this may well mirror your own experiences when you're scrolling through LinkedIn. You tend to see more updates from people than you do companies, just generally. And when you do see a company update, you'll notice that it often is promoted. So company pages are suffering from limited organic reach. And that's why many of us are turning to ads to get that visibility and raise that brand awareness. The other benefit of advertising on LinkedIn is that you can target those top decision makers. And we're going to learn today about just how targeted you can be in terms of job titles, companies that people work for, years of experience people have had, skills that people have. So you can get really granular with your targeting, much more so than you can on Meta. And so if you are targeting people in the workplace, LinkedIn is the no-brainer platform to go for. Obviously, you're using your ads to cut through the noise. And another method which a lot of businesses use on LinkedIn is lead generation. So looking to get email addresses downloaded from their potential targets. This is an example on the right-hand side of a typical lead generation ad you may see. This is from the scheduling platform Hootsuite. They are giving away a free trends report. And once you click on that ad, you're then taken to the website where you can download the report, but you do need to give away some of your data. So your name, your job title, your email address. Those are typically the sorts of things that you might ask for in a lead gen campaign. The brilliant thing is then you can add those email addresses to your CRM, get those people signed up for your privacy policy, making sure that everything's GDPR compliant, and then they can be added to your mailing list. More sophisticated companies might then put those email addresses on a particular mailing list, which has the objectives of upselling or warming that lead and then turning them into a potential customer. I have some clients where the leads that we generate from these sorts of ads will be provided straight to the sales team, and the sales team will get on the phones or get on email and start contacting them pretty quickly. The quicker you are, the more effective it is. So there's so many different ways that you could be utilizing LinkedIn advertising, and the opportunities are really exciting. So let's now talk about what you need to think about when you're launching a LinkedIn ads strategy. So these are my 5 points that I generally tend to try and flesh out before I launch anything. These are the questions that I'm asking my clients when they want to launch a campaign. So I'm going to take you through each one. We'll start with objectives, then audience, then the content which you have, then budget and duration of the campaign, and then we'll talk about the metrics for success. Okay, sorry, I did just switch my video off momentarily then, but hopefully I'm back now. Okay, so the first thing that LinkedIn will ask you when you're setting up a campaign, and you guys will see this later on when I actually do set up a campaign for you, is what's your objective? You can only pick one objective per campaign that you set up. And this is really to help LinkedIn understand what it is that you're trying to achieve so that it can optimize your campaign for this objective. So if you choose website visits, it's more likely to show your ads to people who will click on websites and visit websites. If you choose engagement, it will show your ads to people who are more likely to engage with stuff rather than just scroll. So it does help those results. It also helps when it comes to measurement because it will give you the statistics and the results from your campaign based on what that objective was. Once you've set up your objectives, you cannot change, which is quite frustrating, but you'd have to just kind of set up a brand new campaign. Website visits and lead generation are the two most popular, I would say, from my experience with running ad campaigns for the past decade on LinkedIn. I'd say most people who are investing in LinkedIn ads want to see that result, that tangible result, whether that's a website visit or whether it is a lead, so an email address. However, I wonder whether we're going to see more video campaigns come out where brands are simply just trying to get people to watch their videos and use it as more of a brand awareness piece. So once you've selected that objective, you then move on to building the campaign. And one of the most important parts of the campaign build is your audience. So this is the bit which you can spend so much time in, brainstorming or kind of tweaking your audiences as well. You've got some pretty standard options, like where are they based? What language would you like to target them in? So what language are they using LinkedIn in? And you've also got some more sophisticated options as well, like being able to retarget people based on their email address or based on where they work. So you can put company names in. You can also use some of the kind of typical criteria that you would expect, like job title, place of work, industry, skills. So I'm going to take you through all of the options that you have available. And then later on when I demo, I will also show you how to set up these audiences as well. So when it comes to the standard attributes that you can target, I would say the most popular criteria tends to be company name. So that means you are targeting people who work for, and then a whole list of companies. So you might want to target people who work for maybe some of the like top 50 companies that have been listed in some awards, or maybe you're downloading the leads list from your CRM or getting your sales team to provide you with that. That's something that we do for one of our clients at Avocado Social, is their team will actually literally download their HubSpot data, send it over to us in a file, and then we can upload that to LinkedIn and say, we want to target these 300 companies. You can, of course, layer on criteria on top of that. So you could then say, I only want to work people that work in marketing who work at these companies, like the top 50 ad agencies or something like that. So company name is a very popular one. Company industry, so you could go a bit broader than that. I have a client that targets the defense industry, so that's why they use that particular criteria. And then they target specific job titles within the defense industry. Company size, job title is again one of the more popular criteria to use. And as you can see in the screenshot, you don't just put one job title in, you put every single possibility of a job title, because of course people call themselves different things: social media marketing manager, social media marketing specialist, social media marketing executive, social media strategist. So LinkedIn actually recommends similar job titles once you start putting the main keywords in, which is really useful. And then you can just go through and select everyone off the list. You will find that a lot of the job titles are American. And so there may well be job titles that exist here in the UK that haven't quite translated across to LinkedIn. This happened for one of my clients who worked in healthcare, and they just couldn't find the specific job titles that they would expect to see. So what we did was we did quite a bit of research into how people were listing themselves on LinkedIn. So we went and looked at people in their target audience and tried to work out what the terminology they did use was. And so that was a really useful way just to understand who then to target. You've got job function. So that's kind of more around, which department they might be in, HR, marketing, etc. Job seniority. So entry level, senior, maybe C-suite. You've got some options there. Member schools is where they studied. So which university or even which school they went to. Fields of study, pretty obvious. Degrees as well. Member skills is kind of more broad skills that they've grouped together. I do find that one is very broad and vague, like IT. For example, would you put a social media person in IT? I'm not quite sure. So I'd probably avoid using member skills. And member groups is where you can actually target people who are part of a specific LinkedIn group. But do remember that LinkedIn groups are certainly not as popular as they used to be. So someone might be part of a LinkedIn group but have no longer have an interest in that topic, or it might not be so relevant anymore. So again, that's not really something I tend to advise using very often. You've also got, there's more. You've got the gender and age of your audience. Just be aware that, for discriminatory purposes, you may well not be able to do that, particularly if you're advertising careers and jobs. Years of experience, company followers. So you can say, I want to target everyone that follows Microsoft or that follows Netflix, for example. So you can actually put the name of a company and target their followers, which is pretty cool. Company connections. So again, might have to refresh my memory on what this one is compared to followers. I believe that's if they've ever had a previous employment with that company, so they're connected to that company in some way. And then we get into the really juicy stuff. So that's all the audience attributes that are pretty standard because you're just going off information based on someone's profile. The next few points are more around the data in which you own as a marketer. So you can upload data into LinkedIn and match people. For example, you could upload all of the email addresses in your CRM and say, I now want to target them on LinkedIn. So if you've got a pretty decent leads list or a very healthy email newsletter list, you could upload that to LinkedIn and then start to target people with ads as well as sending them out emails. So you now have a multi-touch point approach to your campaign. Another thing that works very well is actually uploading lists of company names. So earlier in the previous slide, you'll have seen you can target company names. You can put in 200 manually, and then you hit a limit. And if you want to target any more, you have to upload a Excel spreadsheet of names of lists. So just remember, anything more than 200 companies, you then have to move over to a spreadsheet. But it's really straightforward to do and really worthwhile doing, particularly if you can get that data. So if you've got a leads list or you use HubSpot, or you know that your client or your company can extract that information from somewhere, this can then be uploaded into LinkedIn and you can start to target people who you're trying to get in front of. You've also got a number of retargeting options. So retargeting is when you are targeting people who've already expressed some level of interest in your business, whether that's engaging with your company page content, maybe they've been on your website before, maybe they've clicked on a previous ad that you've run in the past, or maybe you've used a LinkedIn event and they've said that they've RSVP'd, they've said they're attending. You can then target them with an ad. So there's lots of ways to actually use the signals which exist within LinkedIn as a reason why you're going to target them in an ad. And you can use combinations of all of these as well. So you can get very, very complex with how you are targeting people. For example, I ran a campaign last year for a client and we were targeting people who had previously expressed an interest in their business. So we targeted people who had visited their LinkedIn company page, visited their website, and had RSVP'd to an event, which was an online LinkedIn Live. So those were kind of 3 touch points that we knew proved that they had an interest in this business. And then we were moving them further along the funnel, trying to get them to download a guide where we could have their email address off the back of that. So we could then get a little bit more data about them and add them to our mailing list. So that's the really important part of your strategy, is actually coming up with your audience and being as detailed as possible, speaking to other people in your organization to get as much information as possible as well. Ideally, you want to aim for an audience size of around 20,000 to 80,000. That's kind of the size I've seen the most success with. That's not to say that you can't go smaller than 20K. You've got a minimum from LinkedIn of 300. So you have to have 300 people. But sometimes, these platforms can be buggy. Sometimes it won't actually physically let you launch your campaign until you have a few more than 300. So I think I was trying to launch one for a client recently and we had less than 1,000, but more than 300, and it still wouldn't let us launch the campaign. So having more people in your target audience not only guarantees that your campaign will go live, but it also means that you're reaching a wider audience and you're giving yourself more chance for success, because the more people that see it, the more chance people are going to click, engage with it, spread the word about it. I think LinkedIn recommends 50K as a kind of minimum. But we've worked with some pretty niche businesses over the last few years, and there just simply aren't 50,000 people that they want to target on LinkedIn. So 20,000 seems to work quite well. I think we just ran a campaign for a client over the last couple of weeks, and I believe we even went down to about 9,000 and still saw some fruitful results from that. And we could see that they were getting in front of their target audience, which is the main thing. If you can see that you are actually being seen by the people that matter. There is an option I'm going to show you a little bit later on called audience expansion. And that enables you to widen out your audience. It's a little tick box and it's all automated. And LinkedIn will basically put people into your pool of audience who they think are going to be interested. So it's AI driven, not always accurate. But if you're really stuck and you do want to expand your audience, that could be something to test. I do hear mixed reviews of that. I've used it a couple of times myself, and yes, it can get the click cost down, but you're always walking that dangerous line between it's cheaper, but are you getting the quality? Because you're not guaranteed to get in front of people that really are your true target audience. So you will get a little bit of a rundown of your forecasted results. You'll always get to see your audience size on the right, and then it will tell you things like, okay, this is roughly like how much we think you should spend on this campaign, and this is roughly like the results we think you're going to get for that in terms of clicks or leads, if lead generation was your objective. So we will have a look at that a bit later on too. So content is a really important one. Content being how your ads are actually going to look, what content you've got, what assets you have to actually grab people's attention. You can run ads that are documents. So this is a document ad on the far left where someone will scroll through, or a carousel ad, they're sometimes called. In the middle, you can have just a single image if you wish, which is, quite a bold, quick way to get someone to click through to a website. You can also run video ads, and we've got a few examples of those coming up later. And finally, you can run ads which are actually coming as if they were from someone else's account. So somebody who is maybe connected to your business, maybe one of your employees, your CEO. These are called thought leader ads. And it's where you're essentially putting some spend behind an organic post that a thought leader has done in your network. So you see this quite often with C-suite at the moment. It's quite a popular choice for people to maybe promote their CEO's message. And like I said earlier, I've got some examples of that coming up later from the likes of Virgin and Sky, who are both using those. So the advice is, when it comes to content, what is that value exchange? What are you offering your target audience in terms of value? Are you giving them a free report, a webinar? Are you giving them a really juicy podcast episode? Are you giving them access to a free event? What is it that you are giving your target audience in return for that click? And that needs to come across in the ad very clearly. LinkedIn does recommend that you have at least 5 variants of creative in one campaign. So that could be 5 different graphics. It could be 2 different graphics, but you're using a mixture of 3 different captions and kind of mixing it up. It could be the same graphic, but with different captions each time. But ideally, you do use this as an opportunity to test and learn with what works. So the more variants you have, the more data you're going to get about your market and what they prefer. So you look at someone like Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, and he will have 100 clips live in advertising for one podcast episode, which is very extreme, but that's one way of really testing and learning what resonates with the audience. Was it when the guest said this or when the guest said that? Also different formats as well. So you might want to have a video versus an image versus one of those thought leader ads and really start to understand what works best. I have linked to a website here, which I'm going to pop in the chat, which is all of the specs required for every kind of different format on LinkedIn. Apologies, I've just lost my mouse, so I'll just stop sharing for a second while I get this link. And this is a really useful link if you're kind of a bit stuck on, okay, what size do I need my images to be? Or what length do I need my video to be? So this is kept up to date, or they say it's kept up to date at LinkedIn. Okay, so hopefully I'm back to sharing my screen okay with everybody. Great. So how much should you be spending then? So this is a tough question because there isn't really a set amount. You can use test budgets where you maybe, put some spend behind a campaign and just see how it performs, and then get some benchmarks from that campaign of, how many people you've managed to reach. I've had various calls with LinkedIn in the past over the years, and they generally tend to recommend somewhere between sort of 40 and 50 pounds a day. That I don't know whether that's something they've just been trained to say, but that has, come up a couple of times with different reps on different calls. So that could be a test budget that you go for. At Avocado Social, we tend to recommend £1,000 for a campaign, which would last a month. That's just something that we found works quite effectively. And then once you've done that, you have a good grasp of, okay, if we've reduced that slightly, what can we then get? Or maybe we just run a 2-week campaign and spend £500, for example. So it does come down to quite a bit of tweaking and, of course, learning with what works best with your audience. You might find as well, if you're running ads for various different clients, which we do, for some of our clients, LinkedIn advertising is fairly expensive, and for others, it can be dirt cheap. And that depends on the audience. as well, and how niche that audience is. For one of our clients who do target a pretty niche audience, they've got their cost per click at around sort of £7. Whereas one of my other clients who has a far greater pool of people they could get in front of tend to see sort of £2 to £3 cost per click. So I can see it vary between industry. So have a good idea about who it is you're going to target. And once you put that into LinkedIn and then you put your budgets in, those forecasted results will update and you should get a bit of a better idea around how much to spend. We typically don't tend to advise that campaigns run for longer than 4 weeks without you making any big changes to the campaign. So obviously, if something is flying and it's doing really well and you want to keep it going, but make some tweaks to some of the ad creative, maybe some of the copy in your ads, or you could tweak the target audience as well. So it's just people aren't seeing the same thing all the time. And you can, of course, keep an eye on that frequency to understand if something is starting to get pretty boring or people are switching off. So this is data from a company called WebFX. They do this for Facebook ads, Instagram ads, LinkedIn ads. So it's quite a useful resource to go to if you want to get those average cost per clicks or average cost per impressions as well. So they say that the average cost per click on LinkedIn is $2 to $3. As I said, we have a couple of clients that are definitely spending more than that. But we know that that is consistent with their industry because we've run multiple campaigns for them and kind of always seen the same thing. So compared to Facebook, I believe the average cost per click on Facebook is around like $1. No, sorry, it's a bit less than that now. It fluctuates throughout the year, and like January, February is often really cheap. Maybe it's like 40 cents or something is the average cost per click on Facebook at the moment. I might have to get back to you on that. But you can see it is a lot more expensive on LinkedIn when you compare like for like. However, you are getting in front of those decision makers on LinkedIn, and you can be far more targeted about making sure you're only being seen by professionals who absolutely have the relevant interests and the relevant career history that you want them to have. And you just can't do that on Facebook. You know, you're always assuming with Facebook, I think they're going to be interested in, I don't know, noodles, or I think they're going to be interested in IT. But you can't guarantee that they definitely do work in the field. So do check out WebFX if you are looking for more kind of information about averages. But remember that this is looking at cross industry on a global scale, so can definitely fluctuate. And the best thing to do is really start testing yourself, see what is possible for your audience and your campaigns. So this is quite an overwhelming slide. This is the LinkedIn dashboard once you've got a campaign up and running. You will get all of the data for each of your campaigns. And you can see in this campaign, I had 5 ads live at this time. So each of those is represented by a different row. So you've got the main metrics that you would expect, things like how many people you've reached, how many impressions your ads have had. You can see there I've got average frequency. That's how many times your ads have been shown. And the average there is 5.31, but you can see each ad itself is around like 1 to 4. Engagement rate, clicks, cost per click. So for this particular client, it was around £6. How many people have clicked on their LinkedIn page as a result of seeing the ads? That's always quite interesting to see. And then how many people have actually clicked on the landing page that we had in the ad as well. So you get quite a lot of data. You can get way more than this. So I'm going to show you later how you would add additional metrics to this report. But it does give you that breakdown of how everything is performing. I would suggest that when you are running a campaign on LinkedIn, you choose between 10 and 12 metrics to look at that are most relevant. These are the ones that we tend to look at Avocado Social. So you can see those in the report there. Reach, cost per 1,000 members reached, impressions, frequency, engagement rate, video views, video view rate. So that's that's the percentage. Just trying to remember the official definition there. The percentage of people who watched at least half of your video. And the average on LinkedIn, I think, is 28%. So that's quite interesting to see there. And then cost per video view, clicks, cost per click, clicks to landing page, and clicks to LinkedIn page, and then the total spend. So those are the sorts of things that we're looking at on a regular basis. And like I said, you can then create your own benchmarks. So you can start to see, okay, well, for this campaign, we got this much reach and it cost us this much per link click. And we got this many people to watch our videos. But for that campaign, this is what we saw. And so it gets easier to start to see what a good campaign is. Okay, so those are the main things you need to have a good idea about before you're going to set up your LinkedIn campaign. So just to run over those once again, it's objectives, audience, your content, whether you need to, go and shoot some new content or whether you've got stuff that can be reworked into a LinkedIn ad, the budget and duration of your campaigns, and what metrics you're going to look at for success. Any questions before I move on to the next section? I don't think anybody's got anything. Just checking the chat.
I was just going to say, I'm sort of about to start setting up campaigns, and I was going to be doing a lead campaign for a client. Can you download the PDF within LinkedIn, or do you need to take them to a separate landing page or website to download it, or can you download it in the ad?
Great question. You can do either. So
Okay, great.
it's very similar to how it works on Meta. I don't know if you've done them on Meta before.
Yes.
So you can have that inbuilt form in your ad. So people don't even need to leave LinkedIn in order to get your PDF.
Yeah.
Or you can send them to a landing page.
Okay.
I've tested both and don't really see like a major difference between them. So I would say it depends how good your landing page is. Because if you look at someone like Hootsuite, they are sending everyone back to their website because they've got such fantastically optimized landing pages. The report button is right at the top. It's so clear. They've got like 2 or 3 fields you need to fill out. It's really not, it's not complicated. Whereas, other people don't have great landing page experiences. So it might be easier just to do.
I guess it's as if also you're then going to have to be uploading the CSV unless you can integrate it to your CRM, your LinkedIn. Otherwise, then you're relying on your client uploading them, and then they're not getting like that email nurture sequence straight away.
Yes.
So that might be why as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think it depends on finding out what that process is going to be. Every time you do get a lead in one of those LinkedIn lead generation forms, you will get notified by email. So
that's good.
Anyone who's an admin of the advertising account receives an email saying you've got a new lead. So it could be worth, adding them as an admin so they get the notifications as well. But I think speed is definitely of the essence, isn't it, when you are doing lead generation?
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's good to move quickly. Thank you.
No worries. I can see that there's a question coming on chat from Arena who says, is there a way to integrate LinkedIn Ads Manager with a CRM so that people receive an automated email immediately after subscribing to a newsletter lead gen campaign, for example? So very similar to what we were just talking about. I don't think you can set that up automatically at the moment. I will have a quick look after this session and find out for sure or not. Last time I checked, which was about 6 months ago, you couldn't. But as you all know, social media evolves. So I will double check that and let you know once I send around the recording from today. But if not, then as I just mentioned to Mim, it would be worth finding out what that process is going to be, because you don't want people to be filling out your forms saying, yes, I definitely want to hear from you, and then they don't get added to the newsletter for 2 weeks. So you want that to be really speedy if possible. Cool. Okay. So another setup point here is around conversion tracking. So some of you might be familiar with how this works on Meta, which is through a piece of code that you put on your website called a meta pixel. And LinkedIn has pretty much exactly the same thing called an insight tag. So you can find your insight tag from the assets within your LinkedIn campaign manager. This is a piece of code that essentially sits in the header of your website. So you would need a website developer to put that in. And it fires every time somebody lands on your website and accepts the cookies, and it connects those users to their LinkedIn data so that LinkedIn can tell you whether there are people looking at your ads and visiting your website. So it just gives you that extra reassurance that the whole process is working. It also means that you can then begin to retarget people. So anyone that has landed on your website, you will then be able to target them in a future advertising campaign on LinkedIn. When you're setting up your conversions, so what you would do is for each campaign, you can create a specific conversion where you're saying, if somebody clicks on one of these ads in this campaign and comes through to the website, I want that to be categorized as and then you've got this huge list of options like a click, a download, an install, a lead. So you could actually begin to categorize conversions depending on what the campaign is about and where you're sending traffic through to. And that will then show up as a metric when you're reporting. So you'll be able to say, oh, this campaign got me 12 downloads. And so then you can work out the ROI of that campaign a little easier. But obviously, this depends on so many different variables. So, for example, it depends on that person accepting their cookies, privacy policy. It means they wouldn't have any ad trackers on their browser. It also, it might be that somebody clicks on one of your ads, doesn't do anything then, but then comes back to your website through Google and decides to download your report then. And that wouldn't be counted as a conversion from the LinkedIn ad. So it can be a very, very tricky thing to be able to measure those direct conversions. If you use any other kind of tracking, like Google custom campaigns, I would recommend using that tracking on your URLs once you're inputting them into your LinkedIn ads, so that you have that kind of reassurance that you've got double options for measuring your success. But I can show you where I do that later on, or just in a few moments when we start building a campaign. If you are using a tool called Conversions API, maybe you're using that with your Meta advertising. This is where you actually connect the social platform with your server so that you're not just relying on cookie data, but you're also relying on server data to understand if people have been on your website before. then you can also do that in LinkedIn now. This is available. The only things that you do need to update if you are using any kind of conversion tracking is your privacy policy. So your privacy policy on your website should state that you are using conversion tracking across LinkedIn, and you are analyzing that data as well, and using it potentially for retargeting, just so people are aware and you're being transparent and, of course, GDPR compliant as well. A complicated old world, conversion tracking, and I feel like it's something that many of us social media advertisers still haven't 100% cracked, because it is very, very difficult. But the key things that I would be looking at are obviously if there are uplifts in your metrics during the time of a LinkedIn campaign. For example, maybe you saw more event ticket sales once your ads went live. Maybe you saw more downloads. Maybe you saw more podcast listens. So it really depends on lots of different metrics that you should be keeping an eye on. Sometimes you can just see a really clear increase in traffic to your website, and that that's the day your LinkedIn ads went live. And also, if you're using something like GA4, you can see the increases that come from LinkedIn.com. So you can kind of align that quite easily with an ad campaign. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is come out of the presentation for a moment and actually show you how to build a LinkedIn campaign. So here we go. So hopefully you can all see my screen where I'm sharing my LinkedIn homepage. And one of the first things to look for is this section on the top right-hand side of LinkedIn called Advertise. So this is where you'd go to start your advertising. If you don't have this if you don't have this short link through to advertising, it will be tucked into the business section here, and you'll be able to find advertising down this list or here. So if you've already set up an ad account for your business, that should appear once you hit manage your campaigns. If you have not, then it will then be prompting you to create a ads campaign manager. You can see I've got quite a few here that I have access to. If maybe one it already exists for your business that you're not sure, whether you need to create a new one, so have a chat with your team. If you're trying to get access to one, somebody would need to go to the account settings and give you access separately. So they would need to actually add your name in here as an admin. And this is separate to anything that's going on with your company page. So it is a separate entity. So once you're in your ads manager, you'll see the main menu down the left-hand side here. It's fairly similar to Meta, if you're familiar with Meta Ads Manager. You've got an overview, which is actually quite a new page that they've launched here, which gives you an overview with any kind of live campaigns and how much you're spending at the moment. You've got a section called Plan, where you can actually start to plan out your audiences and do a bit of research to see kind of the size of the audiences that you're thinking about targeting. I actually don't use any of the other options in there. And then you've got this section called Advertise, and Advertise is your main campaign dashboard. So this is where all of your live, previous and paused campaigns will go. This is a test account, so you'll see most of these are just called test. Annoyingly, this one always catches me out. If you launch a new campaign, it will go all the way to page 2. So if you have launched that many campaigns, it always gets put at the end, not at the top, which seems very strange. And there is no way of pinning it to the top either, as you can in Meta. So quite tricky to actually kind of use LinkedIn sometimes. It's not the best usability. So you've got 3 tabs just to keep an eye on here, which is slightly different again to the way Meta does it. You have something called campaign groups, which are the overarching themes of your campaigns. So for example, if I was running a event this summer, like let's say it's a social media conference and it's happening in July, and I want to run multiple campaigns on the build up to that. I want to do a campaign about early bird tickets. I want to do a campaign where I just focus in on the speakers. Maybe I want to do a campaign where I'm talking about the features and benefits of the conference and what you're going to learn. So all of those campaigns will be housed under one group, and the group would be like social media conference, July 2025. So the campaign group is really just another way to categorize and pull together all of the different campaigns you're running for one main event. So you would first of all create a campaign group. And again, there's a couple of things to watch out here. Once you give your campaign a name, you have the option of having an overall group objective, or you can switch that off. And I would really recommend switching that off, because it might be that you want to run ads with different objectives within that one umbrella. So I might want to do a video campaign. I might want to do a website visits campaign, and I might want to do a lead generation campaign all around this conference that's coming up. So I actually would really recommend switching that off, so that that means you can have multiple different objectives happening underneath this one umbrella campaign group. The other thing I would also not do is have a group budget, because this allows you to just be a little bit more flexible with how much money you want to spend for each campaign. So it might even be that you're not quite sure how much you want to spend to promote this conference yet either. So I would keep that group budget off, and I would also just run the campaign group continuously from the start date. So it's basically always going to be on, and then in that, I've got individual campaigns that I'm going to be running. So I've created that. Now that that group is set up, and I'll show you how that looks in the campaign manager. So as I said, it will go right to the end. I've now got social media conference, July 2025. And when I click into that, there's no campaigns. So I need to then start running a campaign. So the first campaign I want to do, if I click create campaign, is going to be just about spreading the word about this conference. So it's going to be purely around getting brand awareness, I've decided, the first stage of the funnel. So I'm going to click brand awareness. I could also use a video views campaign if I've got maybe a really nice introductory video about what to expect. And it's just asking me, do I definitely want to use this group? Yes, I definitely want to use the conference group. You can always change that up here. Down the left-hand side, you'll now see the different steps I'm going to have to go through when it comes to setting up this campaign. So the first campaign is around brand awareness. Maybe it's like a save the date kind of thing. And this is where I give an objective. And then I get straight into creating my audience. So I mentioned earlier that you can save audiences. So anything that you saved in that planning section can appear here. Or you can just build it from scratch here and then click save at the bottom. So you've always got it to come back to as well. Over on the right-hand side, this is where I've got my forecasted results. So let's start building something. I just want to target people in the UK at the moment, but you can layer multiple locations in one campaign and do multiple regions. I want to target people in English, and I'm going to start by adding some of those typical audience attributes. So things like job title, I think would be most relevant for this. This comes under job experience. And you can see functions, seniorities, skills, years of experience, and job titles. So if I start by searching some keywords like social media, you'll notice that LinkedIn basically starts suggesting titles to me, which is really easy. So I can start to put all of these in. And then just see how that affects your audience size over on the right. So I've got a pretty healthy audience size. This is about what I would really be going for. It may be that I want to include some other sorts of people as well, maybe the graphic designers. Maybe I want to include some business owners as well, because they might be responsible for social media. So yeah, you can see just how easy it is to start kind of building this. So I've targeted basically anyone who has one of those job titles. I can then, of course, if I want to, narrow that audience even further by layering on another attribute. So if I wanted to also say, okay, they have to have had maybe like a year of experience or 1 to 2 years experience at least. That could be something that you want to do. Or you might want to say they have to have had like a degree in communication or marketing or something like that. It could be that I also want to say they have they work in, I don't know, the advertising industry. I'm not sure if that is actually one of the attributes here. Let's just have a quick look. No. So you'll find that sometimes the words are grayed out. And that's because LinkedIn will sometimes only give you the option of using a job title rather than a seniority or a function. So you kind of have to make your decision what you want to prioritize. Is it the job title or is it the years of experience? Sorry, not years of experience, the seniority. So there will be some that you might find you can't layer together, which might be quite frustrating. But I'd always then go with whatever's going to get you the biggest audience size. So that's one way of doing the target audience. At the bottom here, I've got this tick box called Enable Audience Expansion. This is something I mentioned earlier, where if your audience is quite small and you want to expand that and use LinkedIn's AI to add more people into your pool, you can keep that ticked. If I untick it, it's only going to target people in my list here. I have found that sometimes when I tick it, I do get irrelevant people being added to my campaigns. So use that one with caution. You also have the exclude as well, which is going to become important later on when we look at the optimization point of how your ads are performing. One of the really good things about LinkedIn is it will actually give you a breakdown of how well your audience is working for you, depending on things like which are the job titles that people have who are clicking, or where are people exactly located, or what companies do people work for who are clicking on your ads. So if you then spot anything irrelevant, you can come and exclude it from your audience as well. I'll give you an example of that. I had a client who was advertising to people who work in IT, and they found that quite a lot of professors were seeing their content, so people who were teaching anything to do with information technology, and that just wasn't relevant for their campaigns. So we then came in and we took out professor, lecturer, anything that kind of alluded to the fact that people were teaching, as opposed to people that were actually working in the profession. So that's the job title. The other one that you could do is, I mentioned before, company. So I'll just remove those. Company is a good one to use. So you would just go for company name, and then I could literally, start putting some names in, like Apple or Microsoft, Netflix, examples like that. Or you might find that you want to target someone a bit more niche. See if Avocado Social comes up. There we go. So you'll always know if it's the right one or not because their logo will appear, and that's the logo that their company page on LinkedIn is listed as. So if you're not sure if it's the right one or not, just go and have a quick look at them on LinkedIn and you can just clarify that quickly. And then I also mentioned all of the retargeting options, so I'll just very, very quickly show you that. In audiences, you could upload a list. So this is where you can use what's called a matched audience. You'd upload a list of contacts or companies. And if you click upload a list, there is a template which LinkedIn will provide you with. So it just shows you how to lay everything out. So for example, if you were uploading company names, there would be a column of company names. You can put in their website if you want to, you don't have to. You can put in their LinkedIn company page URL if you want to, but you don't have to. The more information you put in these sheets, the more accurate. But I understand, like, it's a really lengthy process to be able to put together a full template for LinkedIn. And I've found success with literally just having the name of the company in a column. And then also you can do contacts as well. So that would be, I think it's email address, first name, surname, maybe phone number if you've got that. But that would just be a simple CRM download and then uploading that into the correct layout for LinkedIn. Once you hit upload, these sometimes can take up to 48 hours to match the data to LinkedIn members. So do give yourself enough time to get that live. It's not an instant thing. So you might not know how big your audience size is going to be for another 2 or 3 days. So that's something to try and do as soon as you can. As well as list upload, you've also got, I really like this section called retargeting. So I can retarget anyone who has, for example, visited my company page, and they might have visited my company page in the last year. So very similar to Meta custom audiences, where you can retarget Instagram visitors and Facebook page visitors. You can do the same with websites. So as long as you've got that tag on your website, you can create an audience of people who have visited your website in the last 3 months, or maybe slightly longer than that. You can even say that they must have gone to like a specific page on that website if you're confident that you've got enough web traffic. So those are a few of the retargeting options, but do have an explore of that. You also have lookalike as well. So again, some of you who've done meta advertising might recognize lookalike audiences. That basically means LinkedIn will create a random pool of people who have similar qualities to some of the matched audiences that you have uploaded to LinkedIn. I've got to admit, I haven't used lookalike audiences that often with LinkedIn because most of our clients are pretty clear about who they would like to get in front of. but it's definitely something I'd like to explore more of. Once you're happy with your audience size, so put my social media managers back in and we'll see how much LinkedIn is going to tell us to spend. So I've got 220,000. It seems a lot bigger than it was before. I'm trying to work out why that was. Haven't got audience expansion on. I think it's because there's a few different job titles that have snuck in there around digital marketing as opposed to social media marketing. But I'll leave it as that for now, just for the example. I'd save that audience so you can come back to it quite easily. And then it comes to choosing the format. So another slightly annoying thing about LinkedIn ads is I have to have just one format for each campaign. So I couldn't run a campaign that had video and image and carousels in one campaign. I'd have to have a separate image campaign running and a separate video campaign running and a separate carousel campaign running, which I don't know why they do it. But again, that kind of reiterates the importance of using that campaign group, which is going to be the umbrella of all of my different approaches to LinkedIn campaigns. So I would have to decide, am I going image, carousel, video? Those are the main ones that you want to be using in an ad, unless you wanted to advertise an event. So if you had that LinkedIn event set up, but I actually think images, carousels, and videos would be more effective than using the event template anyway. So I'll go with video just because, that is obviously on the rise on LinkedIn. A little bit further down, you can add in some campaign tracking parameters here. I've got to say I've never used this box before ever. This is, I think, just an extra place to put in any tags, but I tend to put those links, those tracked links in the URL box when it comes to designing the ad itself, rather than putting them here. Next option is those placements. So I mentioned earlier, you have the option of just advertising on LinkedIn or LinkedIn plus all of their audience network, which are those third-party apps and websites where LinkedIn owns some display space. I've recently trialed this, and as I said before with audience expansion, it does get the price down massively, but the quality isn't great. So you end up showing your ads on some really weird websites, which I'm not sure is a good look for many of our clients. And so for reputational purposes, I would suggest just advertising on LinkedIn where we know the decision makers are spending their time. If you do go for audience network, you can create a block list where you prevent your ads from showing near any content that doesn't align with your brand. But to be honest, if you're keeping things simple, I'd just deselect the audience network if you're a bit concerned about brand safety. Then we've got budget and schedule. So my campaign group is scheduled to run from today. There's no budget aligned to the group. So I'm going to set up my budget specifically for this video campaign. I personally prefer lifetime budgets. I think it just gives you that clarity that you've told LinkedIn, the total amount of what you have. I've trialed, daily and lifetime and not really seen much difference personally, but let me know if you see otherwise. And then pop in your budget there and set your start and end date. So it always defaults to a month. So just be aware of that. If you did want it to be a little bit less, maybe I'll just reduce my budget slightly there. And it's obviously American dates as well. So over on the right-hand side, I'm targeting 150,000 people. I'm going to spend £500 over the next 2 weeks. So what am I looking to get? Because this is a brand awareness campaign, it's giving me the key result in reach as opposed to clicks. If I had selected website clicks as my objective, the forecasted results would be clicks. If I had selected lead generation, the forecasted results would be leads here. I'm actually, because I now want to see what I would be predicted for website clicks. I'm actually just going to change the objective up here. So you can see for £500, they're saying I could get anything from 86 to 310 clicks in 7 days. What about 30 days? So you can see my spend. They're suggesting it does increase if I ran it for a month. And I'd be expected to get 370 to 1400 clicks. So it gives you a bit of an idea, a rough estimation. It's not always that accurate. And obviously it does depend on the quality of your content as well. So a little bit further down then, once you've put your budget in, you've got an optimization goal. What do you want people to do? I want people to get through to my landing page. You have got some options there. Impressions, that's delivering as many views as possible of your ad, could be something that I go for, but landing page clicks is recommended. So I wouldn't adjust that, to be honest. And then if I did want to put in my conversion tracking, so this is once your LinkedIn Insights tag is live on your website, you can create a new conversion event using the Insight tag where you basically are telling LinkedIn this conversion can be fired, can be said that this conversion has completed when somebody gets to a certain URL on your website. So you might have a thank you page, you might have a download page where you're saying thank you for the download, or you've now subscribed, for example. So I'll call it like new subscriber, and I could say that they've now become a lead. You don't have to put in a conversion value if you don't want to. I don't tend to. And then here, because I don't have a tag in this dummy account, I can't show you here. But basically, you then say, if somebody gets to this URL, it means that they have definitely downloaded or subscribed. So you can fire off that conversion and allow the ads to report on that success. This is optional. So I've got to be honest, maybe like 70% of the campaigns we run, we don't have this set up because we're looking at conversions with other metrics like our HubSpot data or our GA4 data. So we don't necessarily need the LinkedIn data as well, but I wanted to just show it to you so that you can see it is optional. You can also use a tag manager to actually kind of tie up all of your conversions as well. So if you use Google Tag Manager, for example, then you can link this to your LinkedIn ad account and to this specific event as well, this specific campaign, I should say. So the next step is designing your ads. Annoyingly, I've just clicked out of that, but that's okay. I can just very, very quickly get that audience back. So once you're happy with everything here and you click to the next section, This is actually designing the ads themselves. So you've got a few options here. You can create something completely from scratch, which is usually what people tend to do, or you could browse existing content. So if you wanted to boost something from your company page, you can do it through this. So maybe something's already gone out on your company page and you would like to put some money behind it. Maybe you want to boost a couple of posts at the same time. That's doable. The other thing you can do here is you can find the thought leader that you want to advertise the post of. So if I wanted to then put some money behind my CEO's latest LinkedIn post, I could click on LinkedIn members and type their name and find the post. That will then send a permission request to them to say, you know, this company is trying to promote your post. Is that okay? And they just click yes. And then that can be turned into an ad. You can see it's grayed out for me at the moment. And that's because my objective is not matching the objectives that are available to do that kind of advertising with. So you can only do a thought leader ad with an engagement objective at the moment. So that's a really, really important point if you are thinking about using thought leader ads to kind of drive conference ticket sales or something like that. You can only do it with that engagement objective. So let me jump back to my slides for a moment because I wanted to show you a few ads which have caught our attention recently at Avocado Social. So hopefully you guys can all see my screen once again. And I think some of the main things that are working really, really well with ads on LinkedIn is, of course, those very bright colors, particularly with images. It's got to be something ideally which includes a very strong hook with text or a person. So you can see the GWI option on the left-hand side uses both. So the person's looking directly down the screen. The text is very engaging, particularly because it's quite large size. It's very eye-catching. And of course, the color as well, like hot pink isn't something you generally tend to see on LinkedIn. This is a really nice way to promote a report or a PDF. We've got a call to action button on the image itself, which isn't clickable, but it kind of makes it feel like it's clickable. And then we've got a really short caption, which is direct and to the point with an emoji in there to grab our attention too. In the middle, EY is using a carousel format here. So this is a 5-page scrolling graphic. The arrow gets you to scroll to the next page. They've got a strong hook on that first page. Quite a short caption, 3 lines. My only thing that annoys me about this is like the text feels, well, there's quite a lot of like long words in the text and it feels quite bunched together as opposed to being nicely spaced out. I really hate hashtags in the copy as well. It really annoys me. I feel like it looks quite dated. So I would not advise you to put hashtags on an ad because if someone clicked on that hashtag Gen AI, you've lost them then. They're not coming back. They're kind of lost in a world of Gen AI. So actually putting in a hashtag in the caption is quite distracting. And then I really like these ads from the Colorado State University I spotted this week with just some really like relaxed, relatable, kind of Instagram-y feel photography there, which is the target audience that they're looking to attract, you know, the same age. It just feels quite modern and friendly, like relaxed tone as well. So if you're using single images or carousels, there's a few best practices for you there. Moving on, you can also use video. And one of the things I would strongly recommend, because there's just not that many people doing it right now, is vertical video ads. So if you have got some vertical video content that you think could work well as an ad, particularly if you've got someone speaking directly down the camera, that's very, very engaging. And these videos can just be a really, really nice way to grab attention. I don't think they need to be more than a minute long, although this one from LinkedIn is 1 minute and 15 seconds. Let's just have a really quick look at this video on the right-hand side and see how that looks. Sorry, I'm struggling to get my mouse onto the screen there.
Hello, good people. I'm excited to share with you this chance for you to give your own TED Talk.
Sorry, I shared the wrong video there, but you can see that's a very engaging video anyway. Let's just play this one.
Hello, good people.
No, sorry.
I've lost your sharing of your screen, Alison.
Oh, thank you. For some reason, PowerPoint is not playing ball for me, but I will very, very quickly just play you guys this one. Sure, I'm just, in the interest of time, I'm literally just going to have one video on this slide. Okay, can you guys all see that? Yeah, okay, I'll just play this video.
Who's ready to make some gutsy career moves in 2025? Let's go. Knuckles, is Dad a good boss? Yeah, I agree. Girls, would you like to play LinkedIn Truth or Dare?
Absolutely.
The question, truth or dare?
Dare.
Here we go. Take a card.
I would love to chat further about the next steps of my career. Let me know if you have time.
Sent.
Done.
Oh my God. The message has been sent.
I've done it.
He's the business manager. Just talk about like the direction of the company and how I could be a bigger part of it.
You read it. Oh, we're going to get a real-time response.
So I won't show that whole video, but it's one that came from LinkedIn themselves. And I think that's really interesting that they're trying this kind of vox pop, TikTok style, fast edit, lots of zooming in, almost like presenter out on the street style, which of course we tend to see mostly on TikTok. But to bring that across into the business world, I thought was really clever, and was a very engaging ad to promote their careers options there. And then these thought leader ads as well. So hopefully you guys are seeing that screen as well. But these are 3 thought leader ads I spotted just this week on LinkedIn. You can see they've all come from individuals and then the company has promoted them. So they're posts which these individuals have done organically, and then the company comes in through Ads Manager and uses the promotion, which I just showed you where you search for the LinkedIn member. And so that's becoming like a really big trend we're seeing across LinkedIn. I think it just really plays into the fact that employee advocacy is massively on the rise, and it's a lovely way to showcase some of the activity amongst your employees as well. Only works for an engagement objective, as I mentioned, but it doesn't stop you from having a URL link in the copy. And it's something that I think works well if you get the individual content creator to write it in their particular tone. So don't just write a script for them and then they post it. It's got to be in the flow that they would normally use. So those are a few examples of what's working well on LinkedIn at the moment.
What I got up to this big game weekend, thanks to LinkedIn, SiriusXM, and Pandora.
Sorry, I forgot that was a video, but I will let you go and explore those. I can send a few links to them as well. A really useful tool is the LinkedIn Ads Library. So this is a free resource that anybody can go and have a look at. I'll pop the link in the follow-up email so you can go and explore. But this allows you to look at any company in the world and see what they're currently advertising on LinkedIn, or what they have advertised in the last 30 days, I think it is. I can't remember if you can go back any longer than that. But this allows you to really start to understand the different formats or even the different objectives that your target audience might have. Sorry, not your target audience, your competitors. So I looked at LinkedIn just to see, what their approach was. And you can see they're using quite a lot of different formats and in different languages as well. It's useful to go and have a look at your competitors, see what they're doing. Useful to have a look at some other companies that you kind of aspire to and see what they're doing in terms of LinkedIn ads as well. But yeah, really, really helpful tool if you're doing that bit of research as to what could work best or what looks good in terms of the creative. So before we hop into the measurement and optimization section, I'll just show you a little bit more of the setup in LinkedIn. So when you have got your campaign that you're building live, or almost live, I should say, you can create some brand new ads here. And basically you're taken through a really simple kind of wizard of how to actually put those ads together. So you'd give your ad its own name. So I would definitely recommend having something that relates to the creative that's going into the ad, so that when you're looking at the reports and the measurement, you can easily identify which ad is which. The destination URL, if indeed you are sending people to a destination. And as I mentioned earlier, I would use a tracked link in there. So I would be adding your UTM tracking to each URL, just so you've got that additional conversion tracking. You've then got your caption. So you've only got, I should be able to see, 600 characters in here. And as we saw in some of those examples, sometimes when you go over about 2 lines of text, it can look a bit overwhelming. Also, bear in mind where LinkedIn cuts off the text. So if I look over here, sometimes they'll put see more after maybe the second line. And so the second part of your sentence might be completely out of view. You can use emojis if you want to, they are supported. And then you would upload your image, or if you're running a video campaign, it's a video that you upload at this stage. So you would just simply upload that into your library. And I won't do that now, but you can begin to kind of mock up your ad over here. Do take a look and see what it looks like on desktop and mobile so that you can kind of get a good idea. You can see there LinkedIn starting to cut my text. So I might want to shorten that caption slightly so that it really does show up on mobile. And then just down here, I'm just seeing what these warning messages are. So it wants me to put in a URL. So I'll just put in this URL. You can put in a description, which is a longer description of your ad, which will only appear on desktop. But to be honest, I tend to leave that blank because it's not essential. What you do want to have there is a headline. So you've got 200 characters. And that will appear at the bottom of your ad there. So it is quite a nice way just to add in some additional call to action or detail about your content or event. And then you've got a call to action button you can put on as well, like download, learn more, sign up, join, attend. and that will appear just on the right. Once you've created one ad, if you did want to then create multiple variations, and as I mentioned earlier, LinkedIn wants at least 5 variations. It does often give you this pop-up saying, try and create 5 ads if you can. A really nice way to easily create 5 ads is to just use this menu option here and duplicate. And then once you duplicate, you could change just a couple of elements, obviously the title, but you might want to tweak the copy, or maybe you just change the image or the video. So you can very, very quickly build 5 ads just from one. So that is recommended. And then one other decision you've got to make at this point is how your ads are going to be shown. So you could, if you've got 5 ads, you can either optimize those ads, delivering the greatest number of impressions to the ones that are working the best. So what this basically means is once your 5 ads go live, LinkedIn will test them all. It will see which one is getting the most clicks within about 2 days, and it will then start to show that one more frequently than any of the others. If you want to give your ads a completely fair test, you would just change that to rotate ads evenly. And that's better if you are using this for kind of market research and A/B testing. So that gives all of your ads, even reach, and means that you can comfortably come up with some conclusions about what has worked best at the end of your campaign. So that's just a little hidden wheel just at the top here, not obvious at all. In fact, I remember a LinkedIn rep showing me that probably last year. So it's something I haven't been aware of for that long either. So once you've got your ads all laid out, ready to go, you just click next and you get a nice kind of review of everything that you've got. So do cast your eye over this. Who are you targeting? How much are you going to spend? What your objective is? Have you got LinkedIn Audience Network enabled, which I probably would recommend having switched off. And also the audience expansion, that's again automatically enabled, but it's something I would probably switch off as well, particularly if you're very confident about your target audience. And then once you're happy with everything, just literally click Finish Campaign Setup, and that will start processing in LinkedIn. So once your ad campaign is live, it might take a little bit of time just to start whirring away. Don't worry if you don't see clicks straight away. Sometimes it can take up to 48 hours to actually seed itself in LinkedIn. But generally you do tend to see clicks after about 5 or 6 hours. But give it some time just to learn and see, whether the audience is responding. I certainly wouldn't be making any major changes within the first week, because you really do want to give people a chance to see it. Remember that a lot of people aren't using LinkedIn every day as well. So unlike Instagram or Facebook, where you see results straight away, with LinkedIn, it can be a little bit more of a slow burn. All of the data will be here in this advertise section, which is where all your live campaigns are. So when you've got a campaign that is live, the first thing to do is find it in this list, which can sometimes take a bit of time. Click into the campaign group, and then make sure that your time range is correct. So sometimes this might default to a time range that doesn't actually cover your campaign. So you either want to have it as all time, or just, select the time range in which the campaign's definitely live. Like, for example, in the last 7 days, click update, and then all of these numbers will update for you. you have the option here of building your own report, which I would really recommend doing. There's a button here called columns, and at the moment it says reach. But if I pull down that menu, I can customize the columns here, and I can basically choose all of the metrics that I want to be in my report and choose the order in which they're going to appear. So I always like to have things like reach, impressions, clicks, and sort of cost per click, engagement rate, frequency, all of the ones that I told you earlier in that kind of first view. So it's really easy to see how well this campaign is performing quite quickly. And so click update. You might want to give that a name like Alison's report, and then update that. And so this will then reorder everything along the top and give me all of the data that I need for my report. I tend to do, if I've got a campaign live, I tend to do a weekly kind of top line report where I will just dip in and maybe spend like half an hour to an hour just looking at those top results and either letting the client know what they are or just optimizing and trying to look for opportunities to maybe make any tweaks or just, yeah, check everything's working okay. As I said, I wouldn't make any optimizations for about a week or so anyway. So you don't really want to be touching your campaign unless there's anything massively wrong with it. Some of the things that have happened with us recently, which has been quite interesting, has been where ads have been rejected. So we've had a couple of ads rejected recently from LinkedIn. I think they are definitely getting tighter on their compliance and their community standards. So we had an advert recently pulled because it had the word casino in it, and another one because it had the word beer in it. But then we have had other ads go live that have had the word casino and the other beer, and they've been fine. So it's very strange what the kind of policy is at the moment, and it's definitely computer led. You know, the computer's picking up on some things, but not others. If your ad does get rejected, you do get a chance to edit it and kind of resubmit it, or you can just leave it and, you know, let the other ads do the work for you. But when I come into this section, the question I'm normally asking is, are my ads delivering results? So am I seeing the clicks? Am I seeing the impressions, the reach that I want to be seeing? And how much are these actions costing me as well? So you definitely don't want to be overspending. You know, if something is turning out to be really expensive, try and work out why that might be. Is the audience too niche? Is the ad itself just not really generating much engagement? Therefore, the particular message or the creative wasn't strong enough. Maybe it's just, you know, the wrong time of year for the campaign, or people just aren't that interested in the message, or maybe the message isn't clear enough what the value exchange is. So there's quite a few questions to be asking yourselves. I'm just going to nip into a previous campaign which I ran for a client here and show you something which is really, really useful to have a look at when you are looking at a campaign, which is called the professional demographics. So if you click on this button, you get to see a breakdown of the people who engaged with the campaign. Now, it won't tell you all of the data, but it gives you some really good hints as to what kind of people are clicking, who they are, you know, what their job titles are. you've got a drop down menu here. I love looking at job title. I think that's really fascinating. But for this particular client, they really wanted to target people that worked in the advertising and marketing industries. And you can see here that LinkedIn was showing the campaign to brand managers, marketing directors, heads of marketing. And it gives you some kind of good clues as to which job titles generated the most engagement as well. Likewise, you can actually drop down to company as well, and you can see which particular companies people work for in order, that saw the campaign. This is the area I'd be looking at to see if there's anyone that needs to go into that exclude list. So you might find a company here and you think, what? That's not relevant at all. Let's exclude that company from our future campaign. And you can do this while the campaign is live. So it doesn't need to be at the end. This is something that I would be checking in on as part of my weekly top line report. Likewise, location. So in this case, it was UK, but if I did find an area and I thought, you know what, there's really not that much point us advertising in Belfast, we might then exclude anyone in Belfast from the campaign. So it's just ways to kind of keep tweaking and optimizing your campaigns so you're only really spending money on the most relevant audiences. Just having a look at the slides before I head back into those. One thing that came up with a couple of you earlier in terms of questions was lead gen ads. So I did mention in my response that you can basically have a form which sits within your lead gen ad, which is the form someone needs to fill out in order to become a lead. So the only difference when you're setting up a lead gen campaign is that form and actually creating the form. So I'll just very quickly show you what that looks like. So you'd go through all of this as usual. You can choose an image, a carousel, or a video. I'd probably go with an image for a lead gen campaign just because a video might be quite overwhelming if you're also then asking people to click on a link and fill out their details. So just keep it straightforward with a single image. And then if I go to the next section, when I create my new ad, you've actually got this lead gen form associated with the ad, and I can create a new form, which basically gives me a bit of a preview as to what this form is going to look like. So you'd have a headline like register your interest in our first social media conference. So you can see that's just starting to fill in there. And then you can choose the fields that you want people to fill out. So email address, first name, last name are already in there. I probably wouldn't put too much more than that. You might want job title or company, but I'd say any more than 3 or 4, you're really risking people just being like, oh no, do you know what? I won't bother. And you can ask people questions as well if you want to. You've got to pop your privacy policy in there. And then once that confirmation form is built, you can write a little thank you message, which is what they see once they've filled that out. And that just sits within your ad campaign. And as and when you do get leads, you will be notified. I'll show you where those leads sit in the dashboard. So once you come into LinkedIn, those are in. Oh, they've had a little bit of a move around. I actually don't know where they've put it now. We've got the lead generation forms here. Oh, that's it. So in the assets section, you've got lead generation forms, and then anybody who has filled out one of those forms, it will tell you these are all 0. But if there were leads, this becomes hyperlinked. You can click on those and it will say, do you want to download these? And it will just download them into an Excel spreadsheet for you. So it does save them kind of forever there, which is useful. But as we said earlier, you want to be acting on those pretty swiftly. So in a moment, I'm just going to see if anyone else has any other questions. But just to kind of wrap up the measurement and optimization, I spoke to you about using those professional demographics in order to really optimize the campaign and check that it is being seen by the people you want it to be seen by. The other things that I'd be looking out for is there anything you need to make changes to in terms of the creative? So maybe 1 or 2 of the ads just aren't working as well as the others. Maybe you want to pause those and just make sure all the budget's being used by the top performing ones. Like I said, maybe there's a few people you need to exclude from your target audience to really refine that. So that's really what I'd be doing from the optimization point of view. Again, another thing that's maybe happened a couple of times with Avocado Social is we've maybe set up a lead generation campaign a bit too soon. So we needed to like warm up the audience first with some video ads or a carousel ad, and then ask them to fill out a form. You know, people aren't really going to do that straight away, particularly if it's a company they haven't really heard of before. So really starting to understand how your funnel's going to work, and what you're going to ask people to do at each stage of the funnel is really important. Well, I've covered a lot of ground in the last 2 hours. I hope that you guys are feeling a bit more confident about LinkedIn, and hopefully you can see it is fairly straightforward to set up. There's just, a few things to get to know and get to grips with, which all comes with experience. So the more you do it, the more comfortable you feel about it as well. And it is important to gather those benchmarks where possible. What is an average cost per click for your business? What is an average reach that you're able to get with your budget? Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to ask me while we've got a few minutes left? I know Mim had to dash off. I am going to stop the recording so that I can get that distributed to you.